Hello, FWOACers. This is Jacob Rosdale, and I'm joined, as always, by Patrick Boberg. How's it going, Pat?
It is going quite well. How about yourself, Jacob?
I'm doing great, Pat, and we're back with another loving spoonful of Filmcast Without a Cause. Lots to get into this week, so let's just get into it. The biggest story in Hollywood. This shook the entertainment industry to its core. Universal announced they are developing a sequel to this year's Safe House. Pat, how excited are you?
Not at all, because last week I trashed this film. I mean,
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the worst thing I've ever seen in my life, the movie, but I don't think it necessarily needs a sequel. I guess Denzel must have a lot of pull at Universal or something.
Yeah, obviously I'm kidding. I'm joking, because you did make such a stink about it last week.
Bizarre. Did it pull in a lot of cash or something? Was I not paying attention to the box office?
I think it was the number one movie that week, but it came out in like February, so expectations are pretty low. I had to have a little bit of fun with that. Last week, we also talked about cinematic double threats alongside Safe House. And that conversation primarily focused on musicians turned actors or vice versa, musical actors, actor musicals, what have you. What we didn't get around to was talking about actors who also get behind the camera, either as writers or directors. And this week, I noticed a flood of news announcements for actors who were taking a stab. Sometimes this is their first stab at the old joke, what I really want to do is direct. And several famous faces are getting projects lined up to do so. This week, I saw announcements for Ryan Gosling, Michael Keaton, Renee Zellweger. And did you look at any of these titles?
I saw Buttercup for Michael Keaton. I don't remember the synopsis. I know Gosling's is a fantasy film with his momentary co-star from Drive, Christina Hendricks. And Franco, I already thought he directed a couple documentaries or something. But is this his first feature film?
Well, James Franco has done a lot of art films and installations. One of them was like a tribute to River Phoenix, which consisted of scenes out of My Own Private Idaho, or like outtakes and B-roll from My Own Private Idaho.
Is that the one that was like 11 hours long? Or that was the joke, is that he made something with River Phoenix that was 12 hours long?
It was ridiculously long. And I remember years ago, like back when the Spider-Man movies were coming out, in the DVD shelves there would be a movie. I didn't even bother to do the research on what it was called, but it was some movie where he was roommates with a gorilla. And on the top of the DVD, it said, directed by Spider-Man as James Franco. Always what I've associated. Obviously, it was something he made in college. And a lot of these documentaries and things he's made are school projects or just weird projects. I know he did one about Saturday Night Live that has played the festival circuit but never made it to DVD. But he has two, I would say, actual legitimate films that are coming out. And that's why I included him in that list. One of them is an adaptation of Cormac McCarthy's Child of God. And that stars himself and Tim Blake Nelson. And here's the synopsis of that from IMDb. A violent-prone loner moves to the mountain of Tennessee and lives in a cave. That just sounds interesting to me. And the other project, apparently he's already finished shooting that one. And he also has a film coming out called As I Lay Dying, which is also the name of an emo band. Probably got their name from the same place. It's a William Faulkner novel.
I was going to say that's a William Faulkner novel, but he's been trying to get that going for years, I think, right?
Yeah, but apparently it's coming together with his Your Highness co-star, Danny McBride. And the plot to that is, the plot to the book anyway, is about a terminally ill woman and the preparations for her death. And it's told through 15 different characters. So very cinematic, as you can imagine. I'm being sarcastic. And you mentioned Buttercup. That is another small actor-y film about an adult woman who is forced to assume responsibility for her elderly father after he's arrested for drunk driving. And that's the one by, I almost called him Buster Keaton, by Michael Keaton. And he picked that up after Sarah Polley, who is another actor turned director, passed on it. And I led you astray, Pat, in the notes, because I put that this was Michael Keaton's directorial debut. But apparently he directed some film in 2008 called Merry Gentlemen.
Yes, I saw that too, but never heard of it as well.
So of all the titles we talked about briefly, the Renee Zellweger one's a light comedy, I guess, and she's going to act in that as well. Of those films, do any of them spur your interest, or are there any that you really kind of want to see?
Probably Franco's As I Lay Dying, but mostly because Faulkner's books are insane, to say it, not friendly to the screen. Maybe more of a Terrence Malick style film where there's just so much going on that he's going to have to cut a lot of it. So it'll be interesting to see how that comes out. and maybe Gosling, just because I think he's a talented actor, and I don't know. I'd like to see what this. I'm always kind of a nerd for anything fantasy sci-fi related. Yourself, where are you leaning? You're looking for Renee Zellweger's work, aren't you?
4.5 minutes. No, but I would. She hasn't got a lot of work as an actress lately, so I'd like to see her revive her career in some way or another. But Ryan Gosling, his movie is a genre film. I think we mentioned How to Catch a Monster, and that's about a mother whose son discovers a underwater town or something fantastical like that. It sounds very ambitious for a directorial debut. I don't know. That probably is the one I'm most interested in, even though I'm sure it's not as straightforward as we were thinking, just because Gosling and James Franco as well, they're just kind of odd guys. I don't know. I've watched interviews with both of them. And Franco, obviously, the whole joke is that he's a weirdo, always doing odd, random projects. But Gosling seems like a legitimately cool dude, but also like because he was raised in this Mickey Mouse Club Disney World, he's got this wicked sense of humor just because his childhood was so untraditional. So I really like Ryan Gosling, so I am interested in that, and James Franco's Cormac McCarthy Cave movie, just because it's probably going to be interesting. Do you have a I didn't put this in the notes, but do you have a favorite actor, director?
Well, I would definitely go with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, of course,
I have his Clint Eastwood 35 movie collector set, and I haven't seen all of them since I got the set, but I've seen a majority of them in there, and I know that you are one of the people who says that he's not really necessarily a great director. He's more of just does it as the script says. But I think there's something to that. And he's definitely, if you watch some of the things on, say, The Outlaw Josie Wales, he definitely has a style, and everyone on the crew seems to really embrace his efforts. So it's easy to go with somebody who's won 2 Oscars for his filmmaking, but for me, it's an easy pick. Where would you lean forward?
Well, I'd have to say, Orson Welles aside.
Not fair.
I'm going to pick someone I actually haven't seen his last few films. I probably actually have only seen 2 of his films, if I'm going to be honest. But Robert Redford is a guy who's made 2 films I've liked. A River Runs Through It, I kind of like. But one of my favorite movies is Quiz Show. I think it's very underrated.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't Robert Redford's first directorial debut an Oscar winner for Ordinary People?
Ordinary People, yes, a film I also have not seen.
I haven't seen it either, but it's the only film that he's won an Oscar for, personally. So
he was just the first one that came to my mind because I like Quiz Show so much, but I haven't seen Lions for Lambs or The Conspirator. So, and I know he has a film coming out in Toronto this week at the Toronto International Film Festival. And that's as good a segue as any, I guess. The Toronto International Film Festival is going on. And we're recording this on a Monday night, so the festival is not even half over, so we can't talk about what awards were won or even the entire festival. But lots of films have premiered or screened. And I don't know about you, Pat, but I've been following my Twitter feeds pretty intensely. I follow a lot of film critics, so I see a lot of random casual conversation about cinema, and that's kind of what I like instead of reviews. Just getting initial rough impressions of how a film is faring critically. We talked about the festival when the schedule was announced, but now that some of the films have been screened and there's some momentum going with it, any new films shown up on your radar, or has your excitement for any of these films changed?
Well, it's been kind of hard to tell the difference between what's a Telluride film and what's a Toronto International film. Just based off, because I do follow some on Twitter, but I mostly do most of my nerdery on Google Reader, so it's just RSS feed, and a lot of the same things pop up. But it seems like 2 films that we've talked about a little bit. The Master is getting the buzz you would expect, and is this a Toronto film, or Cloud Atlas? It seems like there are people on both sides of the fence here saying that it's the most amazing thing they've ever seen, and other people saying it's a historic failure, worse than their last film, Speed Racer. So I don't know. Is that a Toronto International film?
Yeah, Cloud Atlas is playing at Toronto, and I should mention that the Venice Film Festival just wrapped up as well, and the Master played there. So it's festival season for a lot of these big prestige films. Cloud Atlas, I love the divisive feedback that's coming out about this movie, because that's just how I want it. I didn't want it to be a total flop, and I don't want it to be this crowd pleaser, everyone loves it. Those are the kind of movies I like, where you have to wrestle with it a little bit. And one review I read about Cloud Atlas described it as 6 the fountains rolled into one, and I'm like, that's perfect.
Oh, man.
I am so excited for that movie now, because that sounds like such grand ambition and probably a little messy. Another film that I've been looking forward to, and I kind of forgot about, Joss Whedon's Much Ado About Nothing, which appeared at Toronto.
I haven't heard nothing about this, but I knew it was playing because we talked about it prior. What have you heard?
Well, apparently it just feels like a bunch of friends having fun. Some people are better at the Shakespeare than others, but if you're a big Whedon fan, apparently people from all of his shows just pop up in different places. I got about 3 different impressions of it. All of them were positive. The one that I saw that gave it a letter grade gave it an A-, so I don't have high expectations for it or anything, but if it's a bunch of people I like having fun, that's a movie I'm going to look forward to seeing for sure. And the only other film that I totally didn't know was happening that premiered at Toronto that I'm now interested in is Brian De Palma's new film Passion. There's a trailer out. I haven't watched it, but it sounds like one of these erotic thrillers that Brian De Palma, for a while, that's all he was making. And Brian De Palma is a filmmaker who I can go either way on. He mainly just redoes Hitchcock films, but he's usually interesting, if nothing else. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to Passion as well.
Well, that's good. I wish I had the ability to catch up a little more on what's been happening up there. Like I said, Telluride was the other one, and I'm really mostly looking forward probably to Argo and to hear that's Ben Affleck's third directorial effort, and to hear that some people are calling it, a shoo-in for this Oscar or that, makes me really excited to see it, because just from the trailer, I was totally hooked. So I really can't wait to see that. I don't think it's at Toronto, but it's definitely another, as we said, festival season film to check out. So,
and that one's coming out pretty soon in theaters, so we'll get to find out for ourselves. But speaking of things that we have checked out, let's just get to our feature review.
Celeste and Jesse Forever.
What are you two doing?
What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you mean?
You guys have been separated for 6 months. You're getting divorced. And you spend every day together as if like it's no big deal.
We are separated and we're friends.
It's the perfect breakup.
Sorry.
Beth is so angry.
Yeah, she is uber angry.
Yeah.
Celeste and Jesse are a separated married couple on their way to getting divorced. The twist? They are still best friends and hang out all the time. Their plans to transition out of marriage peacefully is thrown a curve when Jesse starts dating.
This is going to be hard to believe,
But
I met another person.
wait, what?
I'm so sorry, Celeste. Are you okay?
I'm totally fine.
Jacob, it seems the cinematic world of romantic comedy ebbs and flows. Some years we get 27 Dresses, others we get Sundance buzzed about indie films such as Celeste and Jesse Forever. Beyond the hype, the film is lead actress Rashida Jones' first crack at screenwriting, and her and co-star Andy Samberg are both being heralded for stepping out of their improv comedy comfort zone. So Jacob, Celeste and Jesse Forever, something special or a rehash with unexpected faces?
I wouldn't call it a rehash by any means, and I am actually I'm in the something special category, and I'm glad you've set the conversation in the confines of romantic comedies, because I do think this is a romantic comedy in many ways, but I really like this film because it avoids all the typical story beats of a romantic comedy, the meet cute and the different complications that keeps the couple together. It avoids all of those. It falls into some of those cliches, romantic comedy cliches, and we'll get into that later. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this movie, and it made a good date movie. I took my wife, and I heard you took your wife too?
I did as well. It was kind of a last-minute decision to bring her along, and she liked it a lot.
But you?
I'm going to say that it was okay, and it was a fun time, but I don't think it's anything special. I kind of felt like prior to seeing it, when I saw the trailer and heard the synopsis, I was like, this is exactly the same idea as another film that I saw a few months ago, about a year ago now, actually, called Breaking Upwards, which is an independent film written and directed by one of the girls who's on the sitcom Whitney. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but in it, it's about a couple who tries to break up, and they try to stay best friends, but of course, you can't do that, and it's impossible. But this film, while it's not a note for note take of that film, it is definitely felt like a mashup of Breaking Upwards and the film I just mentioned, The Breakup, and 500 Days of Summer. Yeah, it's not to say that those are bad things necessarily, but there was definitely the same type of feel of, that exposed nerve ending that you get a lot in 500 Days of Summer, where you're just like, man, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is just going through it. But instead of having a male lead character, it's Rashida Jones, right?
Yeah, I actually lost the call there for a second, but I'll assume what you said was very interesting and agree with you or disagree with you. You were talking.
Well, I would just say that Rashida Jones, I thought going into this, I thought Rashida Jones wasn't necessarily a great actress, but I think she showed something here that I hadn't seen before, and I'm a little more on her bandwagon.
Yeah, actually, I think Rashida is great, and I think she wrote herself a good role. If you're a fan of Parks and Recreation or The Office, I don't think this is a completely different character from the characters she's played on that show, Karen Filippelli or Ann Perkins. Beautiful, funny people. But I think what her gift is that she can create a fully formed character even when she has little to work with, like she did on The Office. And this film, she writes herself some great emotional beats, and you realize how good of an actress she is. As a writer, I think she needs maybe a little bit of help, because in the middle of this film kind of gets into this loop of repeating bad circumstances. But for the most part, I think she's the reason to see this movie. And I'll say Andy Samberg as well. It was good to see him play a normal guy. I don't think we'll ever, well, as normal as he's still a little goofy. I don't think we'll ever see him play a completely straight dramatic character. But it was good to see him as at least a more normal character than Hot Rod or any of the characters he would play on SNL.
Yeah, I would say that actually he might have been better if he was only asked really to play the dour guy who's going through it. Whereas she kind of runs the whole emotion of going through a breakup, of thinking it's going to go specifically the way she wants, and then obviously it doesn't. I don't know. There were times in this film, like especially in the middle, where I was like, man, this is getting really sketchy. Like she didn't know how to write her way out of a scene. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's where the improv came in. Like there was Andy Samberg and his friends are watching the cheerleaders, and all of a sudden the scene ends with the random guy who's doing coke sitting by them. Or Rashida Jones is on a date with a photographer. And I don't really want to mention how that ends, but it was just so ridiculous. And there were times in this film where I was like, okay, they've written a lot of things that are L.A. Like this is specifically L.A. Mm-hmm. And I really don't like it when films do that. And sometimes I let a movie do it, especially if it's in a city I love, like San Francisco or Chicago. But those are things that really kind of make me, in the long run, go, okay, you could have done this a little better. But, she's a rookie, so I'm pretty impressed with what she has.
Is there some reason you don't like geographic specific movies?
No, not necessarily. It doesn't seem that it does the story any service. Where, if we were to talk about a couple that's having a hard time dealing with their relationship and set in LA, similar to Like Crazy, which came out earlier this year as well, which was another Sundance favorite. It actually won Sundance, and they mentioned they're in LA, but it plays an extremely small role. I just don't like the crutch of the city they're living in, where they're going to go do something silly, like, have Asian people beat them up, like they said, when they're getting a massage. I don't know. It just seemed like some of the things in there don't play to everyone. They only play to a specific subset of people who think it's, I remember when we went and had our back massage by people walking on it. Or I remember when we were hanging out at the Chateau Marmont and that photographer did that disgusting thing.
I guess I can see that. I guess it doesn't bother me as much. I think I did notice it was in LA, obviously, because how could you not? But I in my mind, I was just like, oh, all the actors probably obviously live in LA because that's where they work. So it was probably cheaper for them to just film it around town. I really did think this was a funny movie. In character pieces like this, it's important you like spending time with the people in the movie. I really liked all of the people, all the actors, except for one who was the pothead or pot dealer character, who I think was far more cartoonish than the rest of the film.
I hated him at the very beginning, but then about 2 scenes in after that, I was okay. It's just that first scene where they're at Yogurt Yurt, I think is what it was called in the film, where he was just obnoxious right off the bat. He's also the co-writer of the film.
Oh, I didn't know that. So maybe he wrote it as his breakout role, so he wanted to be memorable, even though it's memorable for the bad ways. And that gets into one of the cliches I was disappointed that this film filled, is that each of the male lead and the female lead each have best friends that they confide in. I liked, I can't remember, I know the actress's name who played the best friend, but I can't think of it right now.
Ari Grainer, yeah.
She was in Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist and on Fringe briefly. But yeah, she's an actress I really would like to see take better roles than the best friend role. The other cliche that bugged me was in romantic comedies, the jobs of main characters are always unrealistic. And in this film, Rashida Jones was a trend
forecaster. Oh my goodness.
Trend forecaster, which is just one of those dumb, quirky, almost made up sounding jobs that only exist in romantic comedies. What I did like about her job was, I think there are a lot of people I like in this film, just actors that I think a lot of goodwill goes towards. Elijah Wood playing the quote-unquote gay best friend, and they have some fun with that cliche. Anything involving her job just made me moan out loud, almost out loud, including her interactions with a Kesha-type singer.
Yeah, this was something that I also had issue with, is that she wrote herself to be like this uptight, always has got to be right girl, which is something that's very common in romantic comedies, is the girl who can't just go with the flow. And it was annoying. But when she suddenly starts dressing down the guy who might be her love interest at the very first blush, and she just goes right to her trend forecasting whole deal, she rips him apart. I was like, this is so cliche. Please move on to the next scene.
Yeah, I do see there are flaws in this film, and but on the bell curve of romantic comedies, I'd say this is a little bit funnier, a little more sad, and a little more emotionally true to itself than other movies of its ilk. I give it a mild recommendation. I think it's a pretty good date movie. It's even if it is a rental down the line.
I would agree. This is, I've been kind of hard on it, but this is one of those romantic comedies where you don't feel it's bad to say, oh yeah, I watched that. Like once you get married, there's a good chance most guys out there are going to see every romantic comedy that ever comes out. And you'll be looking at another guy and you'll say, we watched 13 Going on 30 the other night. And go, oh my God, I just said that. But, you can say I watched Celeste and Jesse Forever and everyone's going to laugh. There were several really memorable, funny moments in this film. And I would say check it out.
Celeste and Jesse Forever is rated R for language, sexual content, and drug use. When we get back, we're going to talk television on this Filmcast. Stay tuned.
Come on, let's go to where it's...
Coming new to DVD this week, a few new releases. Ghosts of the Abyss, which is one of those James Cameron Under the Sea documentaries. I'm a big James Cameron fan, but I haven't seen any of them. Maybe I'll check out this one. Snow White and the Huntsman, which I did see.
I have not seen.
It's not a bad film. I liked the first half a lot more than the second half, but that Chris Hemsworth guy, he's definitely one of those exciting faces to see in movies. And
I've heard Charlize Theron is the whole reason to see this film. Is that the truth?
She was a Golden AC nominee for her role in Snow White and the Huntsman, for her evil queen. And what to expect when you're expecting, which is great news for guys who don't want to have to read the book. Now you can see the movie.
Yeah, my wife Marita just saw this movie listed as coming to DVD, and she's like, how come I didn't know that came out? It's like, I was actively trying to push you away from it. I don't really know if anyone wants to see this film who's a guy, that at least. Anyways, but weekly recommendation time. Moving on from romantic comedies to the vulgar and absurd. When some people who see me in person say they'd like me to recommend things that you can stream, that you can watch on Netflix, because they don't really know what's out there outside of the big films. Well, I streamed 2 extremely vulgar documentaries recently. I think I told Jacob to put at the top of his queue, Shut Up, Little Man. Did I tell you that?
Yeah, you did, and I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm excited.
Well, that is, I'll get to it in a second. I also streamed The Making of South Park, 6 Days to Air. And if you don't know anything about South Park, which would be quite interesting to find that person, but 6 Days to Air follows South Park of making one of their episodes. If you didn't know, they make their shows within a week. They come up with the idea, and then it airs by the end of that week. So that's why they're so topical and to the point. Now, if you do watch it, it's on Netflix. It is extremely vulgar. There is all types of vulgarity in there you could possibly think of. And then the other documentary, Shut Up, Little Man, is about a couple of guys who moved to San Francisco in the 80s and surreptitiously recorded their neighbors who were, one's a homophobe and the other is a horrific drunk, and they're just screaming at each other. And their recordings of them turned into like a viral audio before the internet existed. And it was really interesting, not just because of the vulgarity, but because of how did that world exist. I'm always interested in like underground, hardcore music in the 80s, and this just kind of fits right in that vein of underground audio and tape trading and that whole thing. So check those 2 out.
I'm very excited to see Shut Up, Little Man, because I think the idea of something that could go viral before the internet, that's just something that's so hard to wrap your brain around nowadays. It sounds like the Stone Age, but I can't wait to see that documentary. The film I watched this week is kind of almost a documentary, but not really. It's the film Bernie by Richard Linklater. Why I say it's like a documentary is because it is sort of a mockumentary. It has Jack Black playing this funeral director who befriends Shirley MacLaine, And it's strung together with these Errol Morris-style documentary interviews that are all staged. But I don't think I've ever seen a mockumentary that actually is based on real events. There probably is one, but I can't think of it to my mind. So it is this weird sort of hybrid film. I saw this right on the heels of seeing the film The Arbor, which is more of a documentary, but have actors lip syncing to real interviews. So maybe that's what's still in my brain, that this is kind of, I mean, it's still telling a real story, but it's more dramatized than typical. I actually did really like this movie. I think black comedy is hard to do. And without getting into the plot specifics, I'll say it does get into some morbid places.
Well, is Jack Black good in it? Because to me, he hasn't been very good for a long time. And the way he looked in the trailer kind of turned me off.
Jack Black is an interesting case because I think he's a very entertaining actor. I don't think he is a transformative actor. I think he's really well cast in this role. After seeing the movie, I couldn't imagine any other actor playing this part because he is this sort of effeminate funeral director, very friendly. And after you see some real footage of the real Bernie at the end of the movie, and you're like, oh, I can see why they went with Jack Black. And I doubt he will get any Academy Award nominations or anything, but he's pretty darn good in it. And it's good to see Richard Linklater have a kind of a successful film. There's been a lot of positive talk about this film.
Well, excellent. I'll check it out.
Moving on, we are called Filmcast without a cause. That would sound like we should be restricting ourselves to talking about movies and what's in theaters. But Patrick and I talked, and one thing that happens in the spring is the movies get less good. Or the choices anyway. I think we reviewed a pretty good movie this week, but there's less out there, and the new series are debuting on network television. So we thought it would be fun to stretch a whole different critical muscle by talking about some of these new fall shows. And this will probably be a recurring, not regular every week series. As shows come out, we'll talk about them in this special segment. And I wanted to kick off the fall TV season by talking a little bit about our relationships with television. What we like to watch, what we watch, and talk about what we're looking forward to this fall. Pat, how much television do you watch?
Probably an embarrassing amount, but,
yeah.
I like to laugh and I like television. So, I'm not embarrassed to say it.
Yeah, I probably watch more television than I do movies. And I'm a big film buff, but it's just easier, I think, to get into a television show if you're busy or have a weird schedule because you can watch a comedy in 20 minutes, an hour dramedy in 40 minutes. But I watch way too much television. I think when the season is going, I probably have over a dozen shows that I am falling behind on mostly, but try and keep up with. We talked about television a little bit a couple of weeks ago. And Pat, you wanted to revisit that discussion a little bit and talk about the merits of the small screen versus the silver screen.
Well, there was an interesting thing when Marvel Avengers came out and they were talking with Joss Whedon at this big long, it might have been a Comic-Con where he was talking about the film and talking about his next moves. And he was saying that he actually prefers the small screen to television to making movies, which I can kind of understand coming from a director's point of view because the story can just go on for so long and you can get really into characters if you have a good television show. Otherwise, you tend to, most television shows tend to go sour by the end, like 7th or 8th season. But, I tend to understand that. And if you had a quality storyline that you could stretch beyond 90 minutes, I could totally be behind saying that television is a better medium than film.
Especially for someone like Whedon, who is primarily a writer more than a director. I think television is a writer's medium. When you hear about the person behind a TV show, it's usually the showrunner, who is also the head writer, where in a film, the director gets all the credit. Rarely is the screenwriter talked about. And I think it is, if you are someone who likes to flesh out characters and tell complex stories, television is the place to go. And especially in recent years, I think in the past decade, probably since 2000 or so when The Sopranos debuted, television really has established itself as a legitimate art form up there with film.
Well, if we're talking about TV shows that we have eagerly anticipated their premiere, I just thought I'd throw out a few that have been in the past, and I'm pretty sure you're on board with at least one of these picks, and I'll just start with that. A few years ago, obviously 5 now, Fringe was one of the biggest premieres. And it's another, get this, J.J. Abrams television show. But it was, to me, the thing I wanted to latch onto, because it was, almost a Monster of the Week style television show, or that's how it was pitched, in the X-Files vein of maybe, science fiction. And that premiere episode is maybe the one premiere episode I've ever seen that didn't let me down in any sort of way. And that's like my go-to anticipated debut. A couple others that I wanted to throw out there for better or worse. Bored to Death, TV show that's run its course on HBO, might become a film. I loved that series and watched it from the beginning to end, even when I didn't have HBO through different means. And two that kind of let me down were Chuck. I liked the concept, hated the execution. And I know you probably hate it more than me. But,
I didn't stick through to the end.
You did?
I did not. I thought you did.
Oh, I tried. I got to the last season, and then Chuck's best friend, Morgan, became the Intersect. And, oh, man, it was just, so bad. But also another one that I stuck to the end just because of the concept was Studio 60 and the Sunset Strip.
Oh, I watched that to the end, too. Actually, as a rule of fact, I typically, if I'm with a show, I am with it till the end. I have a very hard time quitting a show, and that's how I get into this dozen shows a week or so problem. And and Chuck is, I have to cut my ties early if I'm not going to stick with it to the end, or else I'm like watching Nip Tuck for 5 seasons and absolutely hating it.
Man, what are you doing to yourself?
Or watching Smallville for 11 years just because it's a comic book property. Yeah, I'm kind of, I have weird OCD things. I was really looking forward to that Fringe premiere as well. I remember it was the first J.J. Abrams genre show after Lost premiered, and I was a big Alias fan as well. So and Dollhouse, that was a Whedon show, but that was his first after Firefly. So basically, I am very loyal to show creators. I'm also loyal to certain networks, even though they don't deserve my loyalty. They are corporations interested in making money. But I remember being psyched last fall for Terra Nova because it was a Fox sci-fi property. And Fox just typically, even though they're known for canceling shows, they take the most risks, I think, of the networks. And their shows are typically the best looking. I think networks do kind of have house styles, even though some shows it's more apparent than others. But Terra Nova, the pilot was great, but the show from there just went downhill. I'm more of a recent memory guy. There were probably shows I look forward to more, but I was a big fan of NBC's Awake last season, and that was a great looking
that was
show.
Interesting.
And had a great pilot too. But,
I was going to say, what about looking shows on NBC? You got to give some love to Journeyman. That looked awesome.
Journeyman was a good looking show. Looking at this fall, are there any new shows you look on picking up?
Will most likely check out Go On because I'm a big Matthew Perry fan. I just think he's funny. And, I'm probably going to get suckered into it. And I don't have any hope for this show being any good. But Vegas, just because, shows set in the past, there's a chance it might have some original style to it. But chances are it's just going to be another Mad Men knockoff.
I actually am looking forward to Vegas as well, even though that's another case where it's the network that has me a little trepidatious about really getting excited for it, because CBS is basically a crime of the week show. Even the one non-reality show I watch on CBS, Person of Interest, even though that has some interesting things going on in the grander arc, it's still mainly a case of the week show, and I just can't get as invested in those as I can TV shows that have these really overarching stories that I think really make it unique from film. The main show I'm looking forward to is probably Arrow on the CW, which I'm looking forward to with cautious optimism because we are talking about the CW, but mainly because it's a comic book show. And I mentioned earlier I watched Smallville for 10 years or however long it was. And I also watched Birds of Prey when it was on for half a season. If it's based on a comic book, I'll probably watch. I watched that stupid Witchblade TV show. But there's some good comic book TV shows. It's surprising that it hasn't happened more now that it's the big thing to do in movies.
Well, I think the problem is the scale of the action in a TV show, so there's a lot of money to put that size of action scenes in it.
Yes, and definitely watching Smallville, you can tell that.
Yeah.
But anyway, actually, I say I'm looking forward to Arrow, but if I was going to answer this question a week ago, or if I was going to be completely honest, I probably would say the show that we're going to review right now. That would be the new J.J. Abrams production, Revolution.
Benjamin, what's up?
Where have you been?
It's all gonna turn off.
What?
It's gonna turn off and it will never, ever turn back on.
What's gonna turn off? What are you talking about?
Everything.
Did I lose you?
Oh no.
Miles.
Set in a world where all electrical technology has failed, NBC's new fall show Revolution follows one family trying to solve the mystery behind the global outage while avoiding enemy factions who want that secret for themselves.
Take it. Don't let anybody know that you have it. If anything happens to me, just keep it safe. Do you understand?
I'm gonna have to ask you to come with us under the authority of the Monroe Republic.
Why?
Do I have to repeat myself?
As I mentioned earlier, Revolution is one of the shows this fall that I've been looking forward to the most. I'm a big fan of producer J.J. Abrams and have watched pretty much everything his company Bad Robot has put on the small screen. And this show definitely has a lot of the elements his shows are known for. A high concept with a large ensemble cast and a big central mystery. Full disclosure, even if this pilot was god-awful, I probably would continue to tune into Revolution because I'm such a fanboy and tend to give genre television series a few episodes to find their footing. Pat, you're probably less obsessive-compulsive than me, but after this pilot, do you plan on sticking around and seeing where this goes?
Oh, most definitely. I'm not somebody who will see it and stay the whole time, but there was enough in this and an interesting concept that would make you want to stay. And even though some of the things might have been given away in the trailer that we'll put in the blog post, it's definitely got something there. My problem with this episode that doesn't immediately sink its hooks in is that it almost did too much of story building to make you say, hey, here's this guy, here's the bad guy that's going to be out through the entire show series, and here's his henchman, and here's this. I mentioned in the last episode that maybe the best debut of a series that actually stuck with me was Fringe. And while they did do some of that story building for the entire, or series building, I should say, it seemed like the first episode was really something all on its own, because it was like a 2-hour movie almost that set up everything that was going to come after. In this one, I kind of felt like, okay, this guy's here, and now we're going to see that maybe this guy's going to turn eventually, and then here's this woman. I don't know. Did you see any of those blemishes, or were you completely enthralled?
Oh, in general, pilots, I think, have so much to do, especially in forms of exposition. You learn to forgive those if you watch a lot of television because, that's just part of them selling the show to the network in many ways. The main problem I felt with, there was a lot of exposition, but the characters were so... they're rarely fully defined in pilots in general, and that's definitely the case with this. The Brian Burke character, he's the guy who's in, I know him from the Twilight movies, but he's kind of he's the uncle in it, if you don't know who I'm talking about.
Oh, I did not know who he was, okay.
Yeah, he's been in a lot of television and the Twilight movies. That's basically what he's famous for, but they do a lot in shorthand to make you know what kind of character he is. Like, he's supposed to be this reluctant hero. They just want you to know that he's this Han Solo-ish rogue by having him act like a tough guy and look sorrowfully into the mirror and being a drunk. That's just one of those pilot things where they're trying to throw a lot at you at once.
Well, I kind of felt like that was the thing that this pilot was missing was, maybe some fun with their lead action hero, that he almost seemed too much business. You're known for being a good killer. It was like, okay, yeah, that's an interesting line. But I don't know. You mentioned Han Solo, but he didn't have the same jokey personality that everyone kind of looks to Han Solo as the guy for the swashbuckler.
Yeah, he's definitely the top of that. But I'm thinking they just want us to think that he's that type of character. Because every show or action show, I think, needs to have the good bad guy, the anti-hero. You mentioned how good the concept is. I do think it is a fun concept. But for one thing, and I'm surprised you haven't mentioned this already, it requires a lot of suspension of disbelief. Yeah. For basically all technology is wiped out. It's basically every Y2K nightmare come to life.
Well, they said in the show, the guy who worked for Google, he says all physics went crazy. So, they don't even have a realistic way of answering what went wrong. Nobody understands it, and they kind of say, yeah, this is impossible, but that's kind of the thing. How is it possible if it's impossible?
As someone who's watched a lot of J.J. Abrams programs, they're less concerned with the why as to how they can tell cool stories with it. But I say that knowing J.J. Abrams is just the brand for this. He's probably not the actual brains. That would go to Eric Kripke, who is the showrunner for this series, who was the creator of Supernatural, a show on the CW that I checked out a few episodes in the first season and didn't really give a lot of credit to, but it has a very strong fan base. And we should mention Jon Favreau, film director of Iron Man, directed this pilot. But the thing with directing television, I don't know if you really have that much to do or that much to work with. A lot of the director's role, especially for a pilot, working with the director of photography, is establishing the look for the show. And it's kind of an interesting look. The color saturation is definitely boosted. All the greens.
Very lush.
Yeah, the greens pop. They want you to know that this is a society that is more in touch with the land. It's more interesting than some of those NBC shows I alluded to earlier, the Law and Orders or what have you. Where do you think the show can go to interesting places, or do you think it?
I think so. I think it's almost going to be like a mix of Boy Scout survivalism and people kind of recapturing the Dark Ages or something, if that makes any sense. I can already see them putting a high price on things such as the library, or they kind of talk. One of the characters has asthma. Just little things like that. You can definitely see where it goes. And transportation. I'm kind of surprised there were nobody riding a bike anywhere, like bike hordes coming around the corner. They just rode in on horses, which doesn't make much sense to me.
There will be a bike gang at some point in the first season, I almost guarantee. I think it's funny. I think stories of survival, or at least a society trying to survive, has become kind of a big thing on television lately. It works better on television in many ways more than in a movie, because survival is this long process. I'm thinking of shows like Battlestar Galactica, Walking Dead more recently is obviously the big hit. TNT's Falling Skies is also this model. When those shows come into problem is when they don't keep the story moving. And that's looking forward, that's one thing I hope this show can do, is introduce new and interesting conflicts. And I think they have an interesting main bad guy, even though he might not be the main bad guy. But Giancarlo Esposito, which a lot of people know from Breaking Bad, had a few cool moments. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of him. But another thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to get your thoughts on this. Do you think the show wants to be a little cheesy? There was one moment at the end where there's this big fight scene, and one bad guy is just silent and waiting until all the other bad guys are dead. And he's like, this guy, it's kind of like the scene from The Simpsons, which I doubt you.
No, I would totally remember that, where Homer has to go inside and he can't watch the short little Asian guy who is going to do something super cool.
Exactly. That's exactly how that scene played to me.
I think that might have been, I don't know if it's poor writing or poor direction or just poor shot blocking, but that kind of came off as cheesy and didn't work. I don't know. I don't think they want to be cheesy, because that's kind of how you lose some people and almost start moving into the Chuck area. But maybe eventually they'll have some fun.
Yeah, I think that was my hint, or it was a hint to me that the show may be trying not to be anything more than a fun watch. I think NBC tries to be more family programming than what Fox would maybe do with this concept. But as long as it doesn't turn into too much of a lark, I'm going to stay tuned and see how it develops. Worst case scenario, it becomes the Postman. Series.
That's definitely something that entered my mind.
All right. Well, Revolution premieres September 17th at 10/9 Central on NBC, and we watched it on Hulu, which it was funny because I got both a Google ad and a Bing ad bashing Google in the same ad break. So, Hulu. All right. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to wrap the show up. No clicking.
Well, folks, it's the end of the show here at Filmcast Without a Cause, and of course that means we need you to give us your thoughts on this show. Did you think that Revolution, if you've seen it already, is the most amazing thing you've ever seen on television, or do you think it's terrible? Did you agree with us? Have you seen Celeste and Jesse Forever and, fall in love, and we're going to buy the DVD, the Blu-ray, the VHS, the Laserdisc? Anyways, all those things, you can hit us up at filmcastwithoutacause.com and leave a comment on the show. You can tweet to us at FilmcastWOAC, or of course you could just send us an email to our Gmail account. It's filmcastwoac@gmail.com. Jacob, what is coming to theaters?
Not a heck of a lot. Finding Nemo 3D and Resident Evil Retribution, which I believe is the 5th film. I don't think we'll be reviewing either of those, but maybe something in limited release. We'll see. There's 10 Years, upcoming Channing Tatum high school reunion movie. Arbitrage, which is getting pretty good reviews, starring Richard Gere, and Liberal Arts, which is the directorial debut of Josh Radnor.
You are not correct, sir. His directorial debut was Happy Thank You More, Please.
Oh, darn it. Well, it's a directorial effort by Josh Radnor. Speaking about actor-directors, but I appreciate the correction. And in very, very limited release is The Master. Pat, you corrected me on Happy Thank You More, Please. I appreciate that. I wanted to correct myself from last week where I said that Nick Cave, writer-musician, wrote the Road screenplay. He did not. But he did write a third, that still was their third collaboration. I don't recall, I'm correcting myself, without actually planning to, so I don't actually have the third movie, or the first movie they worked on together, but you can do the research yourself if you really care. But what are we reviewing next week? We don't know. Hopefully Cosmopolis, but I don't yet know if that's coming to my area. It's in Pat's. He could review it, and I could just be jealous and ask him questions about, was it cool?
And I'll just be very, I'll be my comments will be very vague, just kind of like his directorial style.
Oh yeah, but I do know what we are doing next week. Something I'm very excited about. It's our FWOAC franchise flashback, and that's going to be a recurring segment where we film by film review re-review because we've seen these films beforehand, usually before. A film belonging to a franchise or a franchise film by film. We're going to start with the Alien franchise, kind of tying in with the upcoming Blu-ray DVD release of Prometheus. But we're not starting where you would think we would with Ridley Scott's Alien. I suggested we check out the film Dark Star, which was written by Alien's Dan O'Bannon, and it's actually the directorial debut of John Carpenter. Now, Pat, I actually watched this last night, and I hope we are still friends after you watch Dark Star.
Interesting. So it's the best movie we've ever seen, huh?
It's different. I'll be very curious to get your thoughts of it. I want our audience to play along, though, so I won't be too coy about it. You can watch this online at, I don't know how to say this. You, too, can be a watcher... oh damn it! The film's on YouTube. Watch. You can watch it on YouTube.
That joke kind of worked.
But yeah, keep this in mind when you watch it. It is a student film that was purchased, and then they doubled the length of it for theatrical release.
Oh, so they stretched it out. Interesting. That tells a lot without saying much.
I've been familiar with this film because it was mentioned in the Alien Quadrilogy DVD set. And there is definitely some influence, or you can definitely see how this is by the guy who created Alien. That's all I'll say for now. But please join in on the FWOAC franchise flashback. Until then, I'm Jacob.
And I'm Pat.
Tune in next week for another Filmcast Without a Cause. Goodbye.
You know, I don't think anyone's gonna tell us when to leave.
Yeah, good call, Garth. I'll bet we're just gonna sit here, and when they're finished, they'll fade to black.
I can't believe they did that.
I told ya.